Hey guys, and welcome to my Tampa Bay Buccaneers 7-round mock draft. We're going to take a look at their depth chart here really quickly. But I think this is a team that honestly, like if they draft the right pieces, could be a big menace in the NFC next year. And I think they were very close last year. Obviously, Godwin getting hurt didn't help them, but they drafted good pieces, they had good producers, and just overall, I think, they're on the cusp. Obviously, they have one of the best, trios of wide receivers with Godwin, McMillan, and Mike Evans, of course. Mike Evans has aged really, really well, and it's has proved that he wants to be a Buccaneer for life and could easily, have how many 1,000-yard seasons still, I think, despite missing some time next year. You look at the O-line, definitely an O-line that's one of the better ones in the league. Worse, Bredesen, get that bread, Bredesen. Graham Barden, solid. Cody Mock, very young, but, good. And then Luke Gedeke. I think this is one of the O-lines in the league that it's you may draft a depth piece in a later round just as a contingency. But it's looking at them, I think, there's only a few kind of holes that I'm kind of oh, they should draft this guy or, maybe go after this position. On the offense, the running back room is fine. I could see them drafting one. Bucky Irving's the real deal. Rashad White had a resurgence, which he's always been a good producer. And then it's but then you look at tight ends. Obviously, Baker's going to be their starter for years to come at this point. And it's you look at, and I mean, he's not anything crazy elite, but he does well enough with the group of guys and as a competitor. So it's Baker's their man. And I've become a fan of Baker since he's been here and left behind the Browns. But looking at tight end, Cade Otton, your number one. I think that him and Payne Durham are fine, for what they are. But it's if they really wanted to push this team over the top, I think you draft, a really good receiving tight end. Moving to the defense, we have Logan Hall, Vita Vea still stud muffin, can't really run that much against him and plays with, a crazy good amount of energy. Kalijah Cansey, they bring in Hassan Reddick to help their pass rush, quite a bit. And then it's you have Yaya Diaby on the other side, whom I'm a fan of, but hasn't produced enough, really. Levante David's still a beast of this defense, and seems to be aging like fine wine, kind of like Evans on the other side of the ball. But, right inside Servocia Dennis, I think that, you look at who they've brought in. I think that you do think that inside linebacker is a need, or middle linebacker. Looking at the corners, Zion McCollum, Jamel Dean, and then Tyke Smith. I definitely think this is potentially a spot of need for them. And then it's you look at the safeties. Obviously, Antoine Winfield Jr., when healthy, is a game-changer guy that you just hard to throw deep against. Christian Izien, I'm not going to lie, I don't have that much information or knowledge on him. I think safety is a position of potential need. So it's looking at the biggest needs on this team, I would maybe say corner, tight end, and then safety. And edge is something that it's I think is a big need. They could go it early, obviously, but this is a pretty good draft class for that. So it's those are kind of my four positions of need. And let's go into the draft, see how many picks they have. And they do only have 6 picks, but I think this is a team where it's if you draft correctly, you really could do very, very, very well. And it's looking at who was drafted ahead, if Jalen Walker were to fall this far, I honestly would not be surprised if the Buccaneers even traded up to And it's like even Matthew Golden following this far, not that they would go for him, but it's like, I think that, when you look at this and you look at this kind of draft class, I think that you're looking at it and you're saying, as the Buccaneers, maybe we trade up a little bit to a couple of like future draft picks, because obviously you need your 6th this year a lot, unless you have a draft strategy to only draft like a few key focal players type of thing. But it's like, looking right here, I kind of noticed that we have Malachi Starks, and then it's like, James Pierce. Mike Green, I'm not going to really talk about. He is ranked 12, but it's, one of those things that he went to a smaller school. Kenneth Grant, falling all the way down here is kind of insane, type of thing. But it's like, you look at who's available. I think that you honestly think, and I mean, Colston Loveland is a guy that I would like to see go to the Buccaneers, but I just don't think they draft him right here, type of thing. I'm actually going to go Malachi Starks to kind of give you a really good safety tandem for deep, and a guy who can play in the box. I think he's just an undeniable like talent, and a guy that like can do so much for you. So we're going to draft him as our safety need, and we're going to move on to probably edge in the 2nd round. Looking here, we obviously have Shamar Turner, who I think could go there. I like Jared Ivory. I honestly would not mind them going Jack Sawyer here. I think Jack Sawyer can come in and be a guy who produces, at a good level and does run defense as well as pass rush run rate. And we know the Buccaneers like to stop the other team from running the football and creating 3rd and long situations. So I would not mind them going Jack Sawyer right here, to address that edge need. Right here, crazy enough, we have Chris Paul, a perfect pick at 84. I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to grab him for the Buccaneers. I think it's a no-brainer, right there, and that sort of thing. Now looking at, DB's obviously in need. We've addressed these other 2 top needs that they said. I think that DB, I love Mello Dotson, and I think that, man coverage has always been something that this team likes, and they like kind of their taller corners. I liked when they had, Carlton Davis, that type of player. I like Mello Dotson to this, and they mostly play zone coverage, on this team. But moving on, we only have 2 picks left. Something that I would like to see this team do would be to draft a wide receiver. It's kind of interesting to me. Kyle Williams is here, whom I like. I think Kyle Williams is a guy who's a little bit underrated. He's kind of small for his size, but has had good production and good yards and a TD sort of threat. He's obviously not the tallest guy. And, but it's like, I would like to see them bring another young pass catcher into the fold. The thing that I will say is that, a guy like this, did play out wide, did play slot, and played all over the place. But so it's like, Godwin's going to be in that role, so he's going to be more than likely playing outside if he is. And, only going to see, a limited amount of snaps with the other guys that they have. I think, though, looking at who they've grabbed, I think it wouldn't be a shock to me, looking at like their linebacker room type of thing. I think you're looking at it and, potentially you draft 2 of these kind of ball hawkers at linebacker that are just like unhinged. We could go Kobe King here. And we'll miss out on the wide receivers and that sort of thing. But that's the thing about this team, is that I feel like, it's one of those things where it's like, potentially you're grabbing some of these guys, and it's that I am going to look at this tight end. I don't know too much about him. Good contested catch rate, drop rate's low as well, run block. So this is one of those that he's a pass catcher tight end with the, obviously he's lighter in size, would need to beef up quite a bit. Big slot receiver, but his blocking is obviously bad, you know, that sort of thing. He's obviously a contested sort of guy. I guess lack of agility, which is kind of interesting given his size. I'm kind of thinking, though, you know, maybe we do look at Jimmy Horn potentially for wide receiver. Oh, a smaller guy. He's definitely only a slot dude. No wide snaps. I don't think that they go him at all. LeJontay Wester, like that name. Slot guy again. It's kind of wild how many slot guys, I guess, you know, CU had. There's Theo Wise. I did say that potentially we draft a lineman to really bolster that O-line. So we're going to look at those. Timothy McKay is someone that I've drafted before as kind of a guy who's got great size, plays guard, you know, and hasn't let up a lot of sacks, you know, despite having a pretty average, you know, pass grade. We're going to look at some other people, though. Gap grade, offensive snaps, run block, pass block. Pass block, he, you know, hasn't let up a lot either. Left guard, obviously, not a pitcher, but he would provide versatility on each side. And let's take a look. A good size as well. Clay Webb, 6'3", 290. A little bit too light, to be honest with you. Xavier Truss, a guy that had sack issues. I think this is a little heavy, even for a later round pick, when we looked at these other gentlemen type of thing. I'm kind of looking for a guy who maybe it's like it could find a niche for or something, you know, type of thing. He's a pole, very tall, pass block grade, very high. You know, perhaps this is a guy with like some added weight. He could actually do well. I'm going to draft as a pole as the last pick of the last pick. And it's like, I would be very happy with this, I guess, draft class and that sort of thing. You know, I think Malachi Starks, A+. It's definitely something interesting. It's like I was saying before, and it's like, see, Colston Loveland went a few after. I feel like this could be the guy that they grab in round one, that they're like, hey, we want another kind of threat, tall threat kind of guy. And, you know, this is going to be our guy type of thing. But, you know, even Jalen Walker following this, which there's some people that are saying he could be a top 10 pick with, you know, his ability, his age, his youth, you know, and that sort of thing. I honestly think that it could be like that as well, you know, but tell me what you guys think about this draft. Obviously, this is a team with limited picks. I honestly think that they could easily trade back in the first. They don't have to go Starks. You know, they could trade back and get some more draft picks type of thing, but it's like we addressed almost every single need. Obviously, as a poll is kind of an outlandish one where it's like, oh yeah, this guy may or may not even be drafted type of thing. But it's like, I do think that it's important to always be vigilant with your O-line because, you know, one run injury and the chemistry is messed up. But tell me what you think in the comments. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I would appreciate it. And as always, go Pack Go.